Remember the 1340s? We were doing a dance called the catapult. You always wore brown, the color craze of the decade, and I was draped in one of those capes that were popular, the ones with unicorns and pomegranates and needlework. Everyone would pause for beer and onions in the afternoon, and at night we would play a game called Find the Cow. Everything was hand-lettered then, not like today. Where has the summer of 1572 gone? Arcade and sonnet marathons were the rage. We used to dress up in the flags of rival baronries and conquer one another in cold rooms of stone. Out on the dance floor, we were all doing the struggle while your sister practiced the Daphne all alone in her room. We borrowed the jargon of farriers for our slang. These days, language seems transparent, a badly broken code. The 1790s will never come again. Childhood was big. People would take walks to the very tops of hills and write down what they saw in their journals without speaking. Our collars were high and our hats were extremely soft. We would surprise each other with alphabets made of twigs. It was a wonderful time to be alive, or even dead. I am very fond of the period between 1815 and 1821. Europe trembled while we sat still for our portraits, and I would love to return to 1901 if only for a moment, time enough to wind up a music box and do a few dance steps. Or shoot me back to 1922 or 1941, or at least let me recapture the serenity of last month when we picked berries and glided through afternoons in a canoe. Even this morning would be an improvement over the present. I was in the garden then, surrounded by the hum of bees and the Latin names of flowers, watching the early light flash off the slanted windows of the greenhouse and silver the limbs on the dark rows of hemlocks. As usual, I was thinking about the moments of the past, letting my memory rush over them like water rushing over the stones on the bottom of a stream. I was even thinking a little about the future, that place where people are doing a dance we cannot imagine, a dance whose name we can only guess. This poem is especially significant to me because I first heard it straight from Billy Collins himself. I believe it was mid-October, a chilly evening perfect for curling up in a cozy bookstore, and I went with a friend who'd invited me to listen to Collins read. To be honest, I hardly knew who the former poet laureate was at the time, but I was immediately struck by him once the reading began. His work was poignant yet humorous, and I could really appreciate the privilege of hearing his own words in his own voice, accompanied by his own gestures and inflection. Nostalgia specifically stuck with me that night, so it was the obvious choice for this project. The first stanza is immediately humorous. The speaker asks us to remember the 1340s and reminisces about the fashion trends and dance moves of a period so far removed from any modern reader that we can't help but smile at the absurdity. The second and third stanzas follow this pattern, humorously lamenting the rather distant past and combining modern language with antiquated fads. In 1572, sonnet marathons were the rage. Days like the 1790s will never come again, and no one sits still for portraits anymore. It's in the fourth stanza that the poem starts to shift and the reader realizes the reason for the poem's humor. Instead of nostalgia for faraway times and places, the speaker is nostalgic for any time but the present. Let me recapture the serenity of last month when we picked berries and glided through afternoons in a canoe. He alludes to better times spent with someone he loves and would give anything to go back even to that morning when he was in the garden with the juxtaposing imagery of the dark hemlocks and early silver light. The last stanza concludes the speaker's thoughts, and he is nostalgic about the past and contemplates the future, but cannot bear to be in the present. I believe this poem's ending is what makes it so American. There is such a note of sadness underneath all the humor, and Americans can relate to this. It is easy to let our memories wash over moments of the past and think about a dance whose name we can only guess, but it is often difficult to live in the present. American society is so fast-paced that most moments really aren't appreciated until they've become memories, and it is also easy to find ourselves focused on waiting for the future. Collins really captures this uniquely American issue through nostalgia, and the poem has become a good reminder to me to appreciate the present for what it is. Time flies whether or not we're having fun, so a sense of nostalgia should be left for truly valuable moments. The speaker understands this when he remembers picking berries and canoeing with his love. Americans should take Collins' message to heart and value the past without forgetting the present, though this can be difficult. I'm sure this poem will always linger in my soul with its humor, sadness, and nostalgia, of course, and when I hear it or read it in the future, I'll feel nostalgia for the evening I first heard it, I'll look forward to more memories to come, and I will be reminded to not forget to live in the present.